Good morning. It's coming up on 7:30. And did you know that today is National Liqueur Day? It is. And we are pleased to welcome Andrew Olsen of Bluestem. And let's start with this first question here. What's the difference between liqueur and liquor?
So liquor is typically something that is completely distilled and no added flavor or infusions. With the liqueurs, we're talking about Luxardo and Luxardo Bianco, infused with different botanicals, typically added sugars to give it some viscosity and a little bit more sweetness. How
do you use a liqueur? How do you use something like that, either like outside of a cocktail, for example?
Yeah, so typically a lot of these liqueurs, we're using them to lengthen the drink, or we're adding them to give it a little bit more depth of flavor, give it a little bit more characteristic, and give it that extra little oomph.
Show us a little bit of what you've got here and what you're talking about.
Yeah, so for the first one, we're going to do Luxardo Bitter Bianco. This is the first clear Italian bitter that we're going to make a Negroni Bianco. So it's going to be equal parts Bitter Bianco, gin.
Is there any particular meal or time of day or anything that this is more appropriate for?
Yeah, so
than say 7:31 in the morning on a Monday?
Yeah, absolutely. So the liqueurs are really great for something to have after dinner. Typically served on ice. They make great highballs, so adding a little bit of soda water or tonic water. So we'll just give this a nice stir.
What's it mean? Like some of the terminology, I think people get a little bit intimidated by the terminology surrounding liqueurs, and they wonder when they hear somebody at the bar say, "I'll take that neat." What's that really mean? What's it mean when somebody says, "I want that neat"? Or,
absolutely. Neat? So neat typically, not typically, always means without ice.
Okay.
Just neat and pretty and in the glass, all by its lonesome. So we'll strain this off.
Seems like a lot of work here, man.
You're right. But the reward is well worth it.
And that is a giant ice cube in that little glass?
Yeah, that's some really nice ice that we're getting from a friend of mine here in town, Brock Schulte. He is
Now this sounds silly, but does that make a difference? Does the ice make a difference for you?
Absolutely. So this ice is completely clear. There's no impurities, there's no air pockets. So what we're getting is, maximum amount of chill without dealing with any of the over dilution and watering down the drink, as a whole.
What are we adding here?
So this is the Negroni Bianco using Luxardo Bitter Bianco, a little orange twist on top.
How much of it, obviously this would probably taste great to somebody, especially if they love liqueur and that kind of thing, but how much of it is in the presentation for you as you're designing a drink? For me, I think it's everything. I think the common term or common saying for a lot of us is that we taste with our eyes first. So, if we can get it to look as sexy as possible and as pretty as possible and the presentation be top notch, then that perceived value is always going to be really high. Right.
And that's what we shoot for, especially at Bluestem and Rye. It's just that's really important to us, is to make sure that what gets to the guest first is, our best foot forward.
So we got about a minute left. You got another little concoction you want to take us through?
Yeah, absolutely. So next we're going to be making just a classic Hemingway Daiquiri. Using a little...
Are we sure Hemingway liked this daiquiri?
He sure did, okay. Absolutely. So we're going to start out with a little bit of J. Ray and Nephew Silver Jamaican rum. Next we're going to go
How do we know Hemingway liked this daiquiri?
Well, he is documented to have been drinking a lot of them in Cuba, and I would be willing to bet that it's probably some sort of record there too.
Oh, really?
So we're...
He holds the record.
Yeah, absolutely. A little bit of grapefruit juice, a little bit of lime to balance out the sweetness. The Luxardo Maraschino liqueur is kind of this bitter and tart cherry liqueur, right, that we get from the Marasca cherry.
All right, here goes the aerobic exercise part of the presentation. There it is.
It's the workout for the morning.
That's the workout for the morning. It is it's the Hemingway, what is it, the Hemingway Daiquiri?
Hemingway Daiquiri.
It is a great thing. We appreciate you being here and talking about liqueur, National Liqueur Day. There's a National Everything Day. Look at that. There's the finished product.